of providing citizens with all that they need. The Nigeria Governors Forum chose the theme, Governing for Impact, building national years over and over again by many thought leaders at home and abroad. Good governance is a panacea for security and development. In the end, it's all about the citizens' hopes and aspirations and basic necessities of life. I welcome you all to this exciting couple of days where learning, bonding, and but it is not my place to provide the official opening remark. It is the place of the 8th chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, His Excellency, Right Honorable Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, Governor of Sokoto State. Please help me welcome him to the podium. Continue to cheer him as he makes his way. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Your Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by the Chief of Staff, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, the Vice Chair of the Nigeria Governors Forum and Governor of Kebbi State, Senator Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, my colleagues, governors of various states that are here present, the Director General of the WTO, Deputy General Secretary of the United Nations, our visiting colleagues from various parts of the world, members of the Diplomatic Corps, governors-elect, other very eminent personalities, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. Let me start by welcoming in our midst His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, ably represented by the Chief of Staff at this special induction program organized by the Nigeria Governors Forum for new and returning governors of the 36 states of the Federation. The Governors Forum has organized this event to support the new governors in developing the essential skills for democratic governance for the implementation of pre-election blueprints. To kickstart this post-election democratic process, we have invited governance experts, bureaucrats, and entrepreneurs within and outside the shores of this country to share their expertise on democratic governance in the vast political economy with unique peculiarities in modern governance framework. I am pleased to acknowledge in our midst the presence of democratic leaders from Africa, United Kingdom, Canada, and the United States of America, who have obliged to share their vast experience with us. Your Excellencies, we have had a robust and fruitful engagement with you as a father and leader for the past 8 years of your issues and adopt measures for economic development and sustainability. We are grateful to have you in our midst today. I'm also using this opportunity to thank my colleagues, Your Excellencies, for the golden opportunity and support bestowed on me to serve you and steer the affairs of the Forum for the past 6 months. I have gained remarkable knowledge and experience on issues of governance, subnational cooperation, and intergovernmental relations on a wider spectrum. These have helped us to establish cordial and harmonious relationship with the federal government with seamless collaboration for federalist consolidation. On behalf of the Governors Forum, I want to particularly thank Mr. President for his immense support to the states and coming to their rescue in times of difficult financial and infrastructural challenges. His recognition of the states as critical stakeholders in a constitutionally defined, independent, co-equal, and interdependent federalist composition has been legendary. His numerous interventions have helped in rescue the state and the nation on several occasions from economic recession and sustained the federation on the path of socio-economic stability and political consolidation. Most recently, Mr. President assented to some constitutional alteration bills into law. Electricity, railway, and correctional services are now on the concurrent list. States have been empowered constitutionally to generate, transmit, and distribute electricity in areas covered by the national grid. We now have financial independence of state houses of assembly and state judiciary. Presidents and governors are expected to submit the names of persons nominated as ministers and commissioners within 60 days of taking off of office for confirmation by the Senate or State House of Assembly. These, among others, are landmark constitutional reforms. Full diversification of the economy entails shifting away from reliance on export of commodities like oil, gold, and agricultural produce to industrialization for genuine development and sustainable growth of our economy. The articulation of our national industrialization policy, improved power supply, and human capital development are critical in our quest for industrialization, for poverty alleviation, and employment generation. This is a task the incoming administration must take seriously for national socio-economic integration. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, as some of us are exiting as helmsmen of our respective states, the new and incoming governors are reminded of the task ahead. We have made giant strides in our various states within limited resources at our disposal in the areas of infrastructural development and provision of social services. We faced the most difficult times in economic management of our states during the COVID-19 pandemic. We exited recessions, and the economy is now on the pathway for sustainable growth. You now face the important task of putting viable strategies in place, assembling competent teams, and collaborating with the federal government to move the nation forward and provide relief to the teeming populace whose mandate you are going to exercise in the next 4 years. You must work hand in hand with the federal government as members of the National Economic Council to boost the economy in tandem with the global best practices. The management of state economies that are totally dependent on accruals from the Federation account is not an easy task. For most of the states, internally generated revenues are improving with some investment reforms measures being put in place. The mandate you have is accompanied with high expectations. Consolidating economic democratic dividends through good governance and service delivery are critical in meeting the people's expectations. Borrowing to finance socio-economic challenges is not a reliable alternative. This is the position of the National Economic Council, chaired by the Vice President, with the governors as members. Subnational governments should work hard to multiply revenue generation bases to generate more revenues for the betterment of the people. Revenue generation agencies of government at the federal and state levels should partner more to generate revenues through taxation to meet fiscal responsibilities. Prompt payment of taxes by citizens will shore up revenue base and provide subnational governments the resources to meet up with their statutory responsibilities to the people. There is the need to collaborate with agencies of the federal government in this regard to avoid double taxation and boost the ability of the states to generate funds through taxation. Unemployment, poverty, and insecurity are difficult tasks incoming administration are expected to face in their respective states. Building strong, viable institutions in the polity will help to achieve at this juncture. Democratic experience. This is still a nascent democratic journey compared to advanced countries, advanced democracies. We need to nourish and nurture it for strong reform and ensure sustainability in the provision of democratic dividends. These are the critical elements that sustain advanced democracies with institutional capacity and human capital development. Political corruption is inimical to economic development. It is a financial crime against the nation and humanity because of its negative impacts on the living conditions of the people and concentration of wealth in the hands of privileged few. We should collectively address corruption at all levels of governance. There is an urgent need for proactiveness in our approach to the menace of corruption. We should eliminate incentives to corruption by waging the war through a bottom-top approach. Loopholes that incentivize corruption should be blocked on all strata of the society. Politicians, civil servants, and corporate bodies should be severely punished, and the economic system sanitized to serve as a deterrent to others. There should be no sacred cow in the fight against corruption. Therefore, it is my fervent hope and wish that as we gather here today to brainstorm on key governance and management skills for national socio-economic development of our nation and people, incoming governors are expected to utilize these skills in the transition from electoral promises during campaigns to policy blueprints in government and governance process. I am optimistic that your shared determination will ultimately reflect on your engagement in the democratic business of governance through policy formulation and implementation for the good of our people. Finally, I welcome once again Mr. President, our distinguished guests, new and returning governors, eminent resource persons, and invited guests, both within and outside Nigeria, to this historic event. I wish you fruitful interactions that will benefit your state and Nigeria as a whole. I pray that God Almighty, thank you very much, God bless you. God bless the State of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Let's appreciate him. The Governor of Sokoto State and Chairman, thank you very much, and Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I also like to welcome here Dr. Omar Aliu Toure, President of the ECOWAS Commission. He's here with us this morning. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all of the men that are here, especially the governors, they are men who do what they love and love what they do. They deliver more than they promise. To them, each day is not to be judged by the harvest they reap, but by the seed they plant. Every day they compel to do something that will inch them to a better tomorrow. And that's why they are our governors, whether current governors or governors-elect or past governors.
Now it seems even electricity access, power, and that's what we at the World Bank are here to help Nigeria on. Our mission globally as well as here is to help countries eliminate extreme poverty and make lives better for the bottom half. And it's the states that need to do that. I've said to all the current governors many times that the future of Nigeria really rests in their hands, as it does in many other countries where the subnational is important. I served in Indonesia, I'm from India. You know, it's the states, the subnational that has made the difference. And in some ways, the governors in Nigeria are among the most powerful elected officials that I've come across in my time in Asia and now in Africa. You have the capacity to make a real difference to the lives of the citizens of your state, and we at the World Bank are here to support you. In fact, Nigeria is now the largest program of the World Bank. Over the last 3 years or so, our board has approved about $9 billion and over $9 billion in financing for Nigeria's development. And the bulk of it has flowed through to support multi-state programs. In fact, about 70% to multi-state programs that are implemented by the states. And as most of the governors know, our basic proposition is very simple. We're here to help support you in delivering for your citizens, but it is based on actual delivery, and so the financing flows as the results come and help make progress for Nigeria. So let me end again by saying that, as DSG Amina again last night said, the future of Nigeria rests in the hands of the governors, because you are the ones who can make sure that the youth of Nigeria, the women and children of Nigeria have the future that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Chowdhury. We appreciate you and the amazing work that you're doing in Nigeria. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, very quickly, I would like to welcome the representative of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I understand that Jeremy Zagrana is here. I would like to welcome you on behalf of the Bill and Melinda.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to humbly request to stand on existing protocol. I was running to just show that we don't have time. Everything is kind of emergency for us. And Your Excellencies, dear governors, dear partner, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I'm pleased to extend my warmest congratulations on your election, I will say re-election for those who have been re-elected, and today induction program. This is really a very key moment for our nation, how we are building a new leadership, a new leaders. And as you embark on this journey, we encourage you to embrace the challenges that lie ahead with enthusiasm, determination, and a commitment to excellences. I don't need to mention that your role as a governor is vital to the development and progress of our nation. And we don't doubt that your leadership will bring about positive changes in the life of our citizens. This is a great moment to engage in meaningful dialogue with the experts and speakers. The Gates Foundation is committed to working with the government of Nigeria at all levels and other partners to improve health outcomes, boost agricultural productivity, expand access to digital services, and empower women and other marginalized populations with great opportunity, economic opportunities. On behalf of those who will benefit from your leadership, I wish you all the best of a successful and fulfilled induction program. May you emerge from this experience with a commitment to serve your state with the highest standard of integrity, excellences, and dedication. May God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And if there were any observers, Your Excellency, one of the things I saw that happened a few minutes ago, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation representative ran up the podium. He literally ran to get here, basically about hitting the ground running for all the re-elected and elected governors. It will be about hitting the ground running. I would like to thank you very much, the representative of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He talked about excellence. He talked about focus and all the things that ensure good governance that we so badly need across the world. It's time now for me to invite a woman very much after my heart. She is the Managing Director, CEO, Aliko Dangote Foundation, the largest foundation on Africa based in Lagos. Its effort is to improve her experience to her position, having worked for the World Bank for many years. May I now invite Zuwaira Yusufu, Managing Director, CEO, Aliko Dangote Foundation, for her goodwill message. Okay, I didn't hear applause. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, I'm represented by his Chief of Staff, Professor Gambari, the Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, my most admired and respected elders, Sister Amina and Sister Ngozi, as I call you, the role models for all African women today. Excellencies, last night's farewell event for the governors was really interesting to me. There were so many lessons that the departing governors were imparting to the new ones, some of them bittersweet, some of them funny, but really the importance of the role that you've been entrusted with, I think, cannot be overstated. Thank you, Nigerian Governors Forum, for giving us this opportunity to say a few words. To our new governors, congratulations. Congratulations on your election. You've been entrusted with the welfare of the people in your states, and I believe that you will be able to discharge your duties perfectly. To the returning governors, congratulations. Also, earning a second term is not easy, and everybody doesn't get to do that. So the fact that you've been able to, as governors, your decisions and actions will have a profound impact on the lives of your constituents. I know that you will work tirelessly to improve the lives of your people, create jobs, improve infrastructure, and provide access to quality education and health care, the latter two being areas where the Aliko Dangote Foundation, which I head, is fully prepared to support you on, as we've done in the past. I wish you all the best and God's wisdom as you embark on this journey of leadership. May your tenures be marked by progress, prosperity, and the fulfillment of the hopes and dreams of those you serve. Thank you very much.
Excellency, the representative of Mr. President, you just heard from the woman who heads the Aliko Dangote Foundation, and she has delivered that goodwill message that encourages all those who have the responsibility now to go forward and run the states. It's time now for us to invite very quickly to the podium the UN Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator, Mr. Matthias Schmale. Mr. Schmale.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, allow me to also stand on already established protocol with respect. Since you will, of course, hear from my boss, the Deputy Secretary General, I can be very brief. Allow me to, on behalf of the United Nations in Nigeria, there's more than 20 of us, most of us in country and some working remotely, to congratulate both newly elected governors and those who have been re-elected. We stand ready to work with you as UN inside the country. Allow me to mention that last year in November, I think it was, we signed a new 5-year Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework with the federal government, and that will of course guide our work in country. It is clear to me, as you heard from the DSG last night and from the World Bank representative just now, this cooperation framework. I'd like to encourage you to see us in the UN as one system, to see us beyond the wonderful work that individual agencies like UNICEF does. UNICEF representative is here, as one UN that has a lot to offer. In the spirit of something I've heard many times during my 17 months in Nigeria is that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, work together. I hope we can work in that spirit with you over these next couple of years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Very quickly, I'd like to welcome here from the U.S. Embassy, His Excellency Ambassador Green, to please step forward here very quickly. Your Excellency.
Good morning. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Chief of Staff Gambari representing President Buhari, leadership and Secretariat of the Governors Forum, serving and incoming governors, distinguished guests from around the world, of whom I'm compelled to note U.S. Governors McAuliffe and O'Malley and former Ambassador Jeter. Welcome. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. It's a real pleasure to be here today. My congratulations go out to all the newly elected governors for their successful campaigns, and for the U.S. government. It's really an honor to be able to speak to you briefly, not just because of the proud federal tradition that both of our states, both of our great nations hold dear, and that fundamental belief that the governors should be close to the governed, but also because of the fundamental partnership between not just our two states, our two nations, but at the governor level that we pursue with all of you and will continue to do so in the future. Those of you already in office, for example, know how deep the partnership with the U.S. Agency for International Development runs. You know that USAID provides humanitarian assistance and promotes a healthier, more educated population, inclusive economic development, and good governance in Nigeria. Through USAID, for example, in fiscal year 2021, the United States invested $855 million in Nigeria, and none of this would be possible without, or would have the impact that it does without your collaboration and partnership at the state level. Let's look at just one piece of our support and cooperation: health. Health programs are a major part of our portfolio and a key way that we partner with governors across the country. Through the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Walter Reed, and USAID, the U.S. government works with you and your states to implement the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, or PEPFAR. And with our cooperation, Nigeria has become a world leader in its quest to reach HIV epidemic control. Together, I know we will end HIV/AIDS as a public health threat in Nigeria by 2030. Additionally, the Governors Forum has played a critical role in Nigeria's polio eradication effort. Your directives to vaccinate every child under 5 and the establishment of the Polio Task Force are the reasons Nigeria was declared wild polio virus free in 2020. But health, of course, is just one segment in which we collaborate very closely for the benefit of the Nigerian people. We work together to help train law enforcement and other security forces. We're working with Nigeria at the federal and state levels on bolstering education, enhancing the business climate, and working to improve court administration and reduce pretrial detention, to name just a few more areas in which we are working together. In all of these issues, governors and state governments are a critical partner. I'll note in this vein that for the first time ever, the United States government has established a special representative for subnational diplomacy in recognition of the importance of having strong ties and strong cooperation, not just at the federal and national level, but at the subnational, regional, and state level. We are eager to continue working with you all, individually and as an organization. Together, we can elevate critical state and national priorities and achieve greater development outcomes for all Nigerians. I'm a career diplomat. I haven't been elected to anything since high school, so I may not have very much to contribute to the challenges that you face in governing your respective states. But what I can say is that the United States government, the U.S. Embassy, the U.S. mission in Nigeria, we will be with you, and we look forward to pulling with you, helping support you, helping you accomplish your goals. I know the challenges that lie ahead of you. I wish you great success, both in these discussions in the forum and during your governorships. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Isn't it wonderful to see that the international community is fully behind the newly elected governors and the whole of Nigeria? And indeed, Mr. David Green, Chargé d'Affaires and acting ambassador of the United States Embassy, talks a lot about how a nation that is working is a nation that is ahead. And that is what this induction is pretty much all about. We want to thank you and the United States Embassy for your goodwill message. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the task of nation building is one that requires that all hands are on deck. And indeed, the task of building Nigeria is the responsibility of every Nigerian. The next set of interventions would be about the task of nation building. To deliver the first address on the task of nation building, allow me to invite a man who has been very busy encouraging young persons across the African continent, a Nigerian economist and philanthropist, and the chairman of Heirs Holding Transcorp, and the founder of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. Help me welcome Mr. Tony Elumelu.
Excellencies and our leaders, allow me also to please stand on the existing protocol. Let me begin by offering my sincere congratulations to the newly elected and re-elected governors. Congratulations for the long, hard-fought elections. For now is the time to show your constituents why they have put their faith and hopes for a better life and living in your hands. I also want to thank the Nigerian Governors Forum, led by my brother, the Governor of Sokoto State, Governor Aminu Tambuwal, for this invitation to speak on a topic that I find very exciting and close to my heart, and vital to our dear country's future. Entrepreneurship, youth engagement, and wealth creation. The dynamics of governance in our country today calls for preparedness, and this program is laudable in laying important groundwork. No one can underestimate the role of good governance in contributing to the development of Nigeria. Our country has a population of 220 million people, the largest in Africa, and the great majority of our people are young. You each govern or will govern states with different dynamics, different population density, different composition of ethno-linguistic groups, different natural resources, different levels of economic activity, different rural and urban dynamics. But there's one constant. You will all govern states where there will be majorities of young people, Nigerians below the age of 35. What does this mean? We know politics. We know politics sees many interest groups and stakeholders competing, jostling. But your success will mean prioritizing the largest stakeholder group in your states, which is our youth. This is why this conversation we're having is so apt and timely. I urge you all to prioritize our young ones. It is the sure means to create the most impact and catalyze socio-economic development and growth for your respective states and Nigeria at large. I am not a politician, but I share your goals: a better, brighter tomorrow for Nigeria, a journey to unity, prosperity, and well-being for all. These are goals the private sector shares and can contribute to. Nigeria's destiny can only be achieved with public and private sectors working together for common good. That is why we champion entrepreneurship amongst our youth. An entrepreneur has a stake in our country's success. An entrepreneur carries others, family, employees, communities with him or her. An entrepreneur wants stability, power, education, respect, and certainty in their environment. With this foundation, entrepreneurs can be the engines of our growth. We know Nigeria is a nation of entrepreneurs. We need our governors to unleash this next generation. So I ask you, how can we make your states more entrepreneurial and geared towards the creation of wealth? How do we create the Nigerian Steve Jobs in the next 4 years of your first term in office? Yes, first term, 4 years. If you do a second term, as we pray and hope for, it's Jara, as we say in Nigeria. But it's good to work with just 4 years in mind. Let me give you my thoughts. First of all, it is about creating the right environment, the enabling environment. Each of our states is like a country on its own. Look at Singapore, a city-state, a country with 6 million people. In 1965, Singapore's GDP per capita stood at $500 US. In 1991, the per capita GDP for Singapore stands at $55,000, making Singapore one of the most developed and thriving countries in the world. This can be your state's story too. Singapore is a country with no oil, no abundance of natural resources, just human resources and purposeful leadership. But how did they get there? It was not a mistake. It took deliberate actions by focused leadership that started with the country's post-independence leader, Lee Kuan Yew. A combination of sound financial and economic policy coupled with a corruption-free environment and technological advancement has led to a massive increase in the standard of living of the people and reduction in poverty in the country. Likewise, in the Asian tiger economies of South Korea, Taiwan, you look at their success, you will see the same themes running through entrepreneurship, education, targeted credit assistance, incubators and accelerators, improved regulatory ease, etc. Your Excellencies, I would like you all to see yourselves as the presidents of your states, CEOs of your state, and lead mentors of your state. Every one of you can do this. And this starts from day one in office, and how you organize even your office and administration, how you set the vision and strategy for what you would like to achieve. I think of when we took over a distressed bank and created Standard Trust Bank, we set for ourselves 3-tiered strategic plan of what we wanted to achieve. We were relentless, and in less than a decade, we achieved all that we were able to achieve. Pick the right team to help you drive your vision. It is a disservice to the people you serve, your constituents, if you do not place competence above loyalty and sentiment. Let us be frank. In our country, there's too much reliance on allocation of funds from the center, from Abuja. We need to think beyond Abuja for source of our revenue. How do we create entrepreneurs? We have the largest youth population in Africa. The future of our states and country belong to our youth. We We know young people in Nigeria are disengaged from the society, and this creates alienation and lack of purpose. This frustration manifests in extremism, immigration, and the slippery slope. The importance and leadership roles and empowering them to contribute to the development of their communities. We believe our young can make meaningful contributions to the society when provided with support they need. We must create a platform for the young majority to thrive, to be heard and contribute. The Nigerian youth unemployment rate is projected at about 51% in 2024. An idle mind attracts evil, and rightfully so. Youth engagement is crucial for the development of any society, and entrepreneurship can play a significant role in driving this engagement. As a private sector leader with interest in key sectors of the Nigerian economy through Exodus, Transcorp Group, United Bank of Africa Group, I see the challenges faced by our young people. Together, we as a group employ over 40,000 people across Nigeria, and I can attest firsthand to the wave of skilled people leaving the country for so-called greener pastures, the Japan syndrome. We must tell ourselves the truth. The world today is so global that talent will always move to where conditions are most favorable. We cannot afford to waste our most precious resource, our young people. I understand firsthand the importance of entrepreneurship in fostering youth engagement. Our Afro-capitalism philosophy demonstrates our belief that Africa's private sector can and must play a leading role in the continent's development. Entrepreneurship is a transformative process as it helps explore creativity, pursue passions, and allows to contribute meaningful impact to our own communities. It helps to build resilience and perseverance. Starting a business is not easy. Success is not even guaranteed. This administration has recorded some success in implementing policies that make it easier for entrepreneurs to start business. But we still need a lot more to be done to move the country forward. By engaging young people to pursue entrepreneurship, we can help them develop these important qualities that will serve them well in all aspects of life. However, there are still many obstacles that young people face when it comes to starting their own businesses, and these need to be addressed. Obstacles are access to capital, hostile business environments, and poor infrastructure. According to PwC, about 80% of small and medium-scale businesses in Nigeria fail within their first year of operation. Each of our governors here has a responsibility and should commit to creating favorable policies that ensure these businesses thrive. It is crucial for leaders to create the environment that empowers and supports our young people to harness their potential and create wealth for our nation. Your Excellencies, you should please foster the growth of a formal and competitive domestic private sector by creating fair, stable, and transparent market regulations in your state. At the Tony Elumelu Foundation, we have tried to empower 18,000 young Africans from all 54 African countries. We train them on how to do business, provide mentors for them, assist them as they try to scale their businesses, and we give them a non-refundable grant of $5,000 each. We support all types of businesses. We are sector agnostic. We have entrepreneurs in agriculture, fashion, entertainment, healthcare, manufacturing, etc. Now, these young businesses have gone on to create over 400,000 direct and indirect jobs across Africa. We have been able to achieve this impact working through partnerships with development organizations such as UN Development Program, UNDP, US Africa Development Foundation, the European Union, Google, the Red Cross, and we have partnered with countries like Congo DRC, Botswana, and here in Nigeria, a state like Anambra State has partnered with us to replicate some of these other stories. Now, imagine if we can replicate similar outcomes in each state of Nigeria and the federal capital. Governor Tambo, you know Shadi Sabi, who is from your state, Sokoto. He's a beneficiary of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. Through the support of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, I took Shadi to see President Obama when he was in office. He needed to see young Africans. He was the person we chose from Africa to go with me. Through the support of Tony Elumelu Foundation, Shadi started a school in Sokoto. He worked hard, was disciplined, and he stayed focused. Today, the young Shadi has grown his school to 6 branches in the state and has over 3,000 students. He has people on street who are in school now, and 571 people are in his employment. Shadi is the second largest employer of labor, private sector employer of labor in Sokoto today, following Boa Cement. And he tells me how he wants to overtake Boa, and I said, keep the dream alive. This is the economic hope and opportunity that we need to give to our young ones. It is not rocket science. If we focus on young people in our respective states, empower them, create the enabling environment for them to succeed, we will solve our problems in this country. It is lack of economic hope or opportunity that leads a young man to carry AK-47 and join a terrorist or bandit group. We need to create the feeling and believe that it's a mutual destiny for our people. Poverty anywhere is a threat to all of us everywhere. Let me conclude. As a businessman, I invest for the long term. In politics, we must do the same. Invest in Nigeria, invest in the long term in our country. Invest in our infrastructure. Be strategic. Identify those areas where we will all get the best return from. And by best, I mean best for our country in terms of stability, unity, prosperity, and the well-being of our people. I have seen how, in the power sector, when government, private sector, and community align, results are transformational. Let us do the same for our young people. Nigeria's next generation are our hope for a better and more prosperous future. They are dynamic, they are vocal, they are patriotic, but they need our support. They need our attention, they need our empathy. They need our action. We need their participation in our society. We should embrace and welcome them. So our political leaders, united today in this important forum, I say, please create more private sector-friendly policies to increase wealth creation and encourage entrepreneurship. As leaders, policymakers, and stakeholders in our society, we must recognize the potential of entrepreneurship to promote youth engagement and wealth creation in Nigeria. We must invest in programs that support and encourage young people to pursue their dreams and aspirations and develop the skills they need to succeed as entrepreneurs. Let us work together to create an enabling environment for entrepreneurship to thrive in Nigeria and to empower our youth to become more active participants in the development of our country. Give them economic hope, and they will transform Nigeria. And finally, my advice to our great governors and leaders, as you commence this journey, let us reflect on legacy. Reflect on your legacy. Ask yourself how history down the line will judge you, and what greater legacy is there than your gift to the next generation of Nigerians, the great destiny that awaits Nigeria. Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you very much. Indeed, great destiny awaits Nigeria. Capitalism, devoting $100 million of his money in raising entrepreneurs across Africa. Thank you very much one more time. The continent is proud of you. Let's appreciate him, ladies and gentlemen. We also want to appreciate and thank our sponsors at this induction program: Access Bank, First Bank, New Globe, GSCL, Premium Trust Bank, and Signature Bank. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, next is a woman that has done so much. Over 30 years, she's been working in Asia, Africa, Europe, Latin America, and North America. Expert in economics and development, international development matters. Former Minister of Finance, right now Director General of the World Trade Organization. It's my honor and pleasure to welcome here Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala GCON.
Well, thank you very much. I think we need some coffee to wake everybody up this morning. Everyone seems a little subdued. But let me start by acknowledging His Excellency President Buhari, ably represented by Chief of Staff, my brother, Professor Ibrahim Gambari. Congratulations on your recent honorary degree award by the University of Johannesburg. And thank you, and thanks to Mr. President for your service to the nation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, honorable governors, let me start by congratulating all the new and returning governors, especially my new governors of Abia and Delta State. Congratulations. I thank His Excellency Governor Tambuwal and the Governors Forum for honoring me with this invitation. You have asked me to address you on the task of nation building. And I have a lot of facts and figures, so I hope you'll bear with me, but I was told to put them all to good work. Every nation is a work in progress. The task of nation building is a continuous one. So even if the fatal mistake in nation building is refusing to learn lessons and failing to course correct where needed. In our country, given its size, diversity, and economic development challenges, the scale of the task of nation building is particularly large. As you take office or return to your governorships, our 222 million compatriots will be counting on you, governors, to rise to the occasion. The states are closest to the people. What you do or don't do, as you've heard already, directly impacts people across the country. Excellencies, Nigerians are not building our nation in a vacuum. When shaping policies and strategies, we need to do so in the context of what is happening in the world. So, we need to wake up and smell the coffee, Excellencies. The world is changing fast, in good ways and bad. And the bad ways are more obvious these days. The COVID-19 pandemic has dealt enormous setbacks to the globe. These have been compounded by inflation, leading to high food and energy prices, rapid monetary tightening, and the impact of the war in Ukraine. Climate change is an existential threat impacting the world, and our country, Nigeria, has not been spared, with more frequent and devastating floods in the south and east, and droughts and desertification in the north. Growth is slowing down around the world. The IMF estimates that global GDP will expand by just 2.8% this year, compared to 3.4% last year, and the 3% projected for 2024. The WTO's forecasts on trade are similarly subdued. Our economists estimate that the volume of global goods trade will grow by only 1.7% in 2023, nearly a full percentage point lower than the average for the past decade. There are worrying signs of regional divergence, with Africa's export volumes projected to shrink by 1.4% this year, compared to a 3.3% growth for North America, for instance. For Nigeria itself, the IMF projects 3.2% GDP growth this year and 3% next year, slightly better than global growth, but underperforming the projected growth rates for sub-Saharan Africa as a whole, which are 3.6% and 4.2% respectively. The current GDP growth rates are higher than the low 1.2% average annual growth rate registered between 2015 and 2019, the 5 years before the pandemic, but well below the 6.4% preceding 5-year period for 2014. In most developing countries and across much of Africa, per capita incomes remain well below pre-pandemic trends. Last year, the IMF reported that 60% of low-income countries were already in debt distress or at high risk of it, And we all remember what that means for investments in health, education, and infrastructure. Years of growth and development progress have been undone by the pandemic and other external factors. In this gloomy and uncertain global context, Nigeria has to work much harder to avoid falling even further behind. In taking the wider global context into account, if taking the wider global context into account is one prerequisite for successful nation building, another prerequisite is trust and a sense of common purpose. Excellencies, I remain convinced that a better future is within our collective grasp. But to move ahead and seize it, we will need political and business leaders at the state and national levels to form a compact in pursuit of pro-growth and pro-development policies. We ought to be seeking to double our growth rates and sustain that higher growth until we attain upper middle income status. We can also aim to double Nigeria's share of world trade from 0.33% to 0.66% within the decade. To build such a compact, we need trust. Nation building is impossible in the absence of trust, perhaps especially so in Nigeria. Even before independence, the generation of leaders that led us to freedom identified how important trust would be to our nation's success. In his first speech as Prime Minister in 1957, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa said, and I quote, "The peoples of Nigeria must be united to enable this country to play a full part in shaping the destiny of mankind. It is the duty of all of us to work for unity and encourage members of all our communities to live together in peace and harmony. The way to do this is to create understanding, mutual respect, and trust." This is from Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa in 1957. Honorable governors, let us be candid. Trust in Nigeria has always been fragile, but following the election, a lot of trust has been broken. Nigeria is a country with no social contract, meaning that Nigerian political leaders have never been able to agree with each other to stick to a common set of principles, values, and policies that consistently deliver for their citizens, regardless of ethnic group or political persuasion. Excellencies, you have a lot of healing to do within your states and between them. Through your words, deeds, and policies, you need to demonstrate to Nigerians that they are equally loved, that they can settle and do business in any part of the country without fear. I love Nigeria deeply, and I want to feel welcome in any part of this country. Just as different states need to rebuild perceptions among people across Nigeria, we collectively need to rebuild the Nigerian brand in the wider regional and international community. Narratives about countries matter for capital allocation decisions, especially for emerging markets. Presented a positive story in the past, backed by credible reform trajectory. Foreign investment has followed. When we have shown that we are cognizant that we account for about 70% of the West African sub-region's GDP and 23% of sub-Saharan Africa's GDP, and we have run our country and economy responsibly to benefit not just us, but the region and Africa as a whole, we have garnered respect. We must continue to recognize that Nigeria has an outsized role to play at home and abroad, and we must manage our country better, not just for ourselves, but for West Africa and the whole of Africa. So let us now turn to the economic situation within Nigeria and the task ahead, which is certainly no rosier than the global picture I described earlier. Growth and macroeconomic stability have faltered, and population growth is outpacing poverty reduction. The World Bank estimates that with the COVID-19 pandemic having pushed 5 million more of our fellow citizens into poverty, the number of Nigerians below the national poverty line reached 95 million last year, 43% of our population, which has considerably worsened from 40% in 2018-19 and an estimated 37% in 2015. Food insecurity is also on the rise. A government-led UN-supported analysis earlier this year warned that the number of Nigerians at risk of facing hunger could rise from 17 to nearly 25 million in the lean season between June and August. It is really hurtful when I hear Nigeria listed internationally as one of those countries where people may need food assistance. As a country with fertile arable land, we have no business being in that category. We have challenges on the fiscal debt and monetary policy fronts. Nigeria's gross debt level has climbed from 19.3 trillion in 2015 to 91.6 trillion in 2023. The debt to GDP ratio has almost doubled from 20 to 39% over that time period. And while the debt to GDP ratio may not look so alarming, as revenues decline, the burden of debt service has increased dramatically. The debt service to revenue ratio is certainly alarming at 83% in 2021 and 96% in 2022, according to the World Bank. This means that after servicing our debt, there's little room to pay for recurrent expenditures, let alone investment. The fiscal deficit of 5.3% of GDP is higher than our agreed fiscal rule of 3%. This has to be carefully monitored and brought down. Dealing with the fiscal deficit will, of course, 2023, rising to 6.72 trillion if it stays through the year. The deficit is made worse by revenue losses from oil theft. The difficulties around this issue underscore the importance of political consensus, whether you are in government or in the opposition, on policies critical for nation building. On the revenue side, states have a substantial responsibility. Too few states are raising internally generated revenue of any significance. According to analysis of data from the National Bureau of Statistics and state-audited financial statements by the Civic Tech Group budget, 33 states relied on federal majority of their revenue. 13 of these states, monthly FAC allocations accounted for over 70% of revenue. Aggregated IGR from the 36 states did rise from 1.2 trillion in 2020 to 1.61 trillion in 2021. But this pales in comparison to FAC allocations to states of 2.23 trillion in 2020 and 3.16 trillion in 2022. While I commend those states that have made additional efforts, governors need to do much more. States must figure out ways to increase IGR. This goes hand in hand with using your share of the federal allocations, which is substantial, more transparently, efficiently, and effectively. You must share with your state citizens how much FAC allocation you receive each month, how much IGR you collect, and how you spend it. We used to publish this information routinely during my time as finance minister under Presidents Obasanjo and Jonathan. We must resume this practice so your citizens can have information to hold you accountable. Excellencies, please, watch your debt profiles and keep careful control of expenditures, even as you invest in infrastructure, education, and basic health systems. Please endeavor to pay teachers, health workers, and retirees their pension. I said in my book, Fighting Corruption is Dangerous. Several Nigerian states have economies bigger than entire African countries. The FAC allocation received by some states is bigger than the budgets of several African countries. And if those countries can grow at 4, 5, or 6%, your states can do better. In terms of capital inflows, foreign direct investment inflows have been weak, but remittances from the diaspora have thankfully remained robust. In 2021, FDI inflows were worth $3.3 billion, according to the World Bank, much better than in 2018 when they dipped below $1 billion, but still less than half the level from a decade before. Excellencies, some states that used to attract foreign direct investment did not receive a kobo last year. Whilst private domestic investment is extremely important, and we listen to one of our business people, and we must work hard to attract and keep this, FDI is also much needed, and it's a good bellwether of external perceptions of the economic and political progress of our country. Let me say this. If you govern well, you're open, and you're transparent, you manage your state well, you will see investments coming, and so will multilateral organizations coming to help. As for the bank recorded 19.5 billion in inflows in 2021 and estimates that they'll rise to 20.9 billion in 2022. This strong performance is in keeping with trends elsewhere in the world. In tough times, Nigerians, like other migrants, dig deep into their pockets to help loved ones at home. But this is an area that state governments should take a careful look at. Diaspora remittances are helpful to shore up household consumption, but they can also be incentivized by you to support states with critical investments. Turning to monetary policy issues, multiple exchange rates, the dollar shortage, and the monetary financing of the government have contributed to instability. Inflation last year at 18.8% was at a 21-year high, leading to the need for monetary authorities to take action by raising interest rates. I must be clear that external factors in the global economy are partly to blame for this situation. But we need to recognize that our domestic management of the economy needs to improve. We need better understanding and coordination of monetary and fiscal policy. We must also look at trade costs. Nigeria and Africa more generally have some of the world's highest trade costs. WTO economists estimate that Nigerian exports to other countries in Africa face trade costs equivalent to a 460% tariff, while exports to the rest of the world face the equivalent of a 210% tariff. On average, Nigerian firms with trade costs that are 1.5 times higher than their competitors in high-income countries. We cannot effectively compete and trade regionally or globally whilst our businesses face such high costs. Looking to the years ahead, the ongoing global move away from fossil fuels will represent an earthquake and a substantial reorientation for the Nigerian economy. While we need to argue strongly for a sufficient transition period to net zero emissions, and I'm very glad to see we committed to 2016, the Paris Agreement, instead of 2050, which gives us an extra decade to transition, we need to start preparing now for a time when our oil and gas may no longer serve us as the main sources of revenue. States with a heavy dependence on FAC allocations will be particularly hit. It is important that you, governors, start now to diversify your revenue sources. The Nigerian economy itself is diversified with robust agriculture, manufacturing, and services sectors. But our revenue base is undiversified, as we all know, with over 90% of revenues concentrated in oil and gas. This has to change. We need to start taxing the non-oil sectors by broadening our non-oil tax base. Governor Tambuwal referred to this in his remarks. So much of our economy is informal. If state and federal government leaders can provide better support and services to informal sector enterprises, they can be registered as proper businesses, assisted to grow, and then become the basis for broader and deeper taxation. States need to think carefully of how to first support these enterprises to grow and eventually how to ease them into the tax net. Other types of revenue sources exist, including property and land taxes, and some states are already implementing these. But I need to remind you that taxation goes hand in hand with better service provision. You cannot tax people who see no benefits arising from such taxes. While the wholesale recalibration of our economy and diversification of revenue sources will not be easy, it contains opportunities for all of us to build a better future, especially for young Nigerians. One set of opportunities comes from the world's changing demographics. Advanced economies are aging fast, as are people in some emerging markets such as China, leading to labor shortages and productivity problems. With our young population, roughly half of Nigerians are under the age of 18, we have a chance to attract investment in labor-intensive production processes. An additional factor in our favor is that many businesses are already looking to diversify their production networks to better manage climate, economic, and geopolitical risks. The question for you governors and for Nigeria is this: how is the country gearing up to attract businesses that want to diversify their supply chains globally and into Africa in sectors like pharmaceuticals? How are you governors planning to make your states business-friendly so you can attract investment? Another set of opportunities comes from the fact that the world is becoming increasingly digital. Digitally delivered services trade is driving growth and global trade. Between 2005 and 2022, global trade in the services, everything from streaming games to consulting to finance, insurance, and tourism, grew by an annual average of 8%. The total value of digitally delivered services exports rose to almost $4 trillion in 2022. Our digitally savvy young people are launching tech startups and taking advantage of rising internet penetration at home and abroad. Interestingly, Nigeria's exports of digitally delivered services are also growing fast, by 23% on average per year since 2005. So we have an opportunity here to work on digitally delivered services trade. By riding these two transformations, demographic and digital, and taking full advantage of regional economic integration in the African Continental Free Trade Area, Nigeria can become a platform for producing goods and services to meet demand at home, across Africa, and in the rest of the world. Doing so would be transformative in terms of job creation as well as production. Success is only the skills base, right? And if we build the hard and soft infrastructure needed to seize the new opportunities. Yet, succeed we must. We don't have the luxury of not succeeding. Our greatest asset is the entrepreneurial dynamism of our young women and young men, which is second to none on the continent. Just look at Hilda Bassi, who is doing this cookathon to enter the Guinness Book of World Records. Everybody is cheering her on. Here's a young woman who's got an idea to project herself and the country forward. Our economy offers many bright spots of globally recognized excellence, above all our music, our film industry, our fashion industries. Artists like Burna Boy, Davido, P-Square, and Wizkid command a global following. I was in the Caribbean earlier this year and was delighted to hear people in St. Lucia listening to Nigerian music. Nollywood is one of the fastest growing creative industries. According to an Afrexim Bank report, it is worth $6.4 billion in 2021 and growing at 10% a year. Please remember this: if California were a country, it would be the fifth largest economy in the world, and it is largely built on services, including entertainment. I always say that the future of trade is services, it is green, and it is digital. And we have the tools and skills to capture new markets on the continent and elsewhere. Beyond music and Nollywood, there's scope for financial services, telecom services, insurance services. Our banks like Access, Guarantee Trust, Zenith, First Bank, UBA must be commended for their successes operating in other parts of Africa and the world. They have the ability to do much more regionally, globally, whilst fostering financial inclusion at home. Fintech is fast developing as well as other types of tech, which you, governors, can capture in your states. I already mentioned our fantastic tech entrepreneurs. Nigeria continues to lead the continent in venture capital inflows. 22% of the $5.2 billion volume of VC deals on the continent last year went to startups headquartered in Nigeria, according to the African Private Equity and Venture Capital Association. But businesses like our tech startups will struggle to thrive if we keep losing so many of our most skilled young people to emigration. Let me share some numbers. Over 15,000 Nigerians emigrated to Canada in 2021, joining 19,000 who had moved there in the previous 2 years. Estimates for 2022 are 20,000. That is over 50,000 skilled Nigerians moving to Canada in the space of 4 years. In the first half of 2022 alone, the UK granted skilled worker visas to nearly 16,000 Nigerians. Thousands of Nigerian-trained medical doctors work in the US. The most popular phrase in Nigeria now is, "I'm going to Japa." I'm not telling young people not to Japa. But what I'm saying is, how many of these Japas can we afford? If you Japa, you must also Kapa, which is to come back. Excellencies, you must make your states and all of Nigeria a hospitable, encouraging place where young people want to stay and thrive, not leave. Without young people, our demographic dividend disappears. I've mentioned all the exciting new sectors, but we mustn't also forget the existing ones of agriculture, production. Value addition to our agriculture will help put a dent in the country's food trade deficit, which stands at 2.29 trillion, the food import bill, which is at 2.29 trillion in 2021. And it would also create jobs and eventually boost regional exports. The Dangote Group plant in Lekki and the Indorama plant in Port Harcourt are proof that we can make some of the fertilizer our farmers need to ramp up production and value addition in the agriculture sector. It also sends two other important signals. One, that we in Nigeria can add value to our natural resources, and two, that as we move towards our 20s, we can use gas as a potential transition fuel to ensure that electrification no longer constrains growth, even as we move to scale up renewables. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm coming to the end of my talk. You can see from this talk that we are not wanting for opportunities. We know we have challenges, but there are no challenges we in Nigeria cannot overcome. I believe so deeply in your ability and the ability of Nigerians, men, women, and youth to overcome challenges. That is why you were elected leaders. So let me end on an up. Nigeria has what it takes. These forces are leaders. Our young people are waiting for you to choose wisely who you will work with, who will be your team. They are waiting for you to govern effectively and transparently with respect for people. They are waiting for you to rebuild and grow the economy of your states, to deliver results, and to lead with love and trust first, not fear. Our founding president, Nnamdi Azikiwe, said, and I quote, "There is plenty of room at the top because very few people care to travel beyond the average route, and most of us seem satisfied to remain within the confines of mediocrity." Excellencies, the task of nation building requires you to break the confines of mediocrity, travel new roads, aim for the top, deliver for our young people. Thank you.
Simply the sheer brilliance of the delivery. And speaking, as always, from the heart. Ensure you have diaspora investment. Reach for the top, travel new roads to help the citizens. Diversify your revenue source. Tax the non-oil sector. And then she gave quite a number of statistics concerning why Nigeria has no business. Konjo Iweala, DG of the World Trade Organization. And let's immediately put Lagos State on the map. Your Excellency, Lagos State Governor, the awards for the Guinness book for the world's longest cooking marathon by an individual. Nigeria she won, absolutely. Governor Sanwo-Olu is letting me know that she won. Yes, she has broken the record, I think, by about 5 minutes, over and above the person who is currently holding that record. Nigeria is truly the place to be, and I do not want to be anywhere else. I see Her Excellency Amina Mohammed sitting with the former Nigeria Governor Forum's chair, nodding her head vigorously on account of Chef Hilda, who has been making jollof rice just the way we like it in Nigeria. This is the time for us, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and also knowing that the representative of Mr. President does have a state matter. Today is there is the issue of the Federal Executive Council. We are aware, sir. We're working on getting us to where we are going before you leave. This is the time for us to invite a man who is going to join us virtually, an American politician and a former police officer who was also serving as a senator. He has founded and is president of the 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. The 10th mayor of New York is going to be talking to us, having founded such an organization about law enforcement, 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. We all know that leadership is also about empathy. And some of the things we're going to talk about and learn today has to do with what leadership entails, how to hand over, how to take over. Please help me welcome, joining us virtually, Mayor of New York, United States, Mr. Eric Adams.
This is New York City Mayor Eric Adams. I want to thank the leadership of the Nigerian Governors Forum for inviting me today. And I bring greetings to Your Excellencies and all the honored guests present. I'm sorry I cannot be there in person with you today, enjoying the legendary Nigerian hospitality and atmosphere. But I want to congratulate all our incoming governors and welcome you to the noblest of callings, public service. Like New York City, Nigeria has always been a crossroads of many cultures, a vibrant and exciting place to live and a dynamic place to do business. It's no coincidence that one of the largest Nigerian diaspora communities in the world is right here in New York City. And we are dependent on your partnership as we work towards a global economic recovery. We are committed to working with Nigeria and all African nations on so many important fronts, from our business relationships to our cultural exchange. Cities are the future, and so is the African continent. The last few years have been tough on every city and every nation. But as we build back, we must think about how we can do better, how we can increase equity and inclusion into every aspect of our lives, how we can provide the jobs, housing, and health care people need, and how we can work to keep our people safe from extreme weather and climate disasters. It starts with acknowledging that you have been entrusted with people's business and the people's basics of our democracy, our civic institutions, our media, our legal system. But it cannot be bought. It can only be earned by us moment by moment. And once you have that trust, that is when you can get stuff done, as I like to say. When we know we are working for the common good, everything is possible. You need to be a doer, not a doubter. That is what my journey has been all about. I saw the dysfunction in the police department. I joined up to change it from the inside. The trust I earned there allowed me to become a state senator and Brooklyn Borough president. And when I became mayor, it wasn't just because people knew my name. They knew they could trust that I would work for them. Work on improving public safety, building affordable housing, making sure our children get a quality education, strengthening our economy, expanding job training and opportunity for all, looking out for those in need, and celebrating that spirit of unity that brings us all together under one flag. This is our job as elected officials. And if Nigerians are anything like New Yorkers, they are going to let you know how you're doing. I look forward to visiting you in person and seeing for myself all the great things you will accomplish going forward. Thank you and enjoy the forum.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, very quickly, I would like to welcome a woman that Nigeria is indeed very proud of. A diplomat, glow to Ministry of Environment, and now she has been carrying the flag of Nigeria aloft. And on behalf of all the fans of Hilda that my lovely sister talked about here, I want to formally say thank you to Governor Sanwo-Olu for the amazing support you gave to the young lady. So let me welcome here the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. Please welcome here Her Excellency Amina Mohammed, GCOM. I welcome you. I welcome you.
Yes. What men can do, women can do better, yes? I didn't say yes. Thank you. Amazing. The chairman of the government, as you join hands in nation building. Dear friends and colleagues, we are meeting at a crucial moment, much of which Ngozi has laid out for us, for your states, for our country, and for the entire world. At a moment of great risks, but fortunately of even greater opportunities, if we can grasp them, this is when we can stand up and be counted. At a moment when the need for nation building, in the broadest sense of the terms, has never been greater. Within our communities, across ethnic and religious groupings, within countries and across the world, people are losing trust in one another. Intolerance is growing, and we've lost a sense of solidarity and common purpose. Our social fabric is tearing, and people question the social contract between leaders and their people. In 2015, the world, including Nigeria, came together at the United Nations to adopt the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, now known as the SDGs, and a roadmap to a better future. Sadly, we are off track, but we can rescue the SDGs. If we keep the status quo since 2015, then it will take us nearly 30 years to end injustice and indignity of extreme poverty, and even worse, 140 years before women have the same opportunity as men in politics and in business. But maybe even more worrying is the fact that the slow pace of change by the world's largest economies means that we are reaching a turning point where there is of no return, especially for our climate target, for a 1.5 degree world, which puts us in jeopardy because currently we are on track for a 3.2 degree world. That makes most of this country uninhabitable. Rising sea levels of the south, underwater. Climate change, the unprecedented disruption from COVID-19, and both a rising number of conflicts, as we see in Sudan today, but also the unthinkable war in Ukraine that has impacted the world way beyond Europe. And the harsh truth out very differently in the global north of those that have, and in the global south of those that don't have so much. Countries in Africa have borne much of the burden. Between 2020 and 2022, staple food prices in sub-Saharan Africa rose by an average of 23.9%. They would not move if they did not have to move. And today, sadly, we have 600 million people in the continent that lack access to electricity. And between the socioeconomic impact of the pandemic, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and the soaring inflation, Africa's debt is at its highest level in over a decade, with 23 countries either bankrupt or at high risk of debt distress. The impacts of these crises are being felt here in Nigeria too. Economic growth in Nigeria dropped to 1.8% during the pandemic, and while it has since rebounded at over 3%, it is still far below the rate that is needed to drive inclusive development. And all the while, with progress in Nigeria stalled on 14 of the 17 goals. And behind these headlines lies the lives and the struggles of millions of Nigerians, especially our women and youth. All of this affects what I see as the bottom line for politicians, social cohesion, when we fail to deliver for people on their rights, their futures, we erode their faith in power, in politics, and in the state. And that results in a loss of trust, in resentment between generations towards elite, and in greater tensions between groups, cultures, ethnicities, and religions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the only way to build a more cohesive nation and a more harmonious world is to deliver better for people. Better services, better opportunities, whether they leave for better jobs or they return for even better jobs and life. Better safety, better government, and a healthier environment. Despite all the challenges, I believe that we have what we need to take a great leap forward in these areas in the next few years. Massive investments and political attention in a number of concrete areas will be key. Allow me to focus on one specific: energy. Globally, we need to end our addiction to fossil fuels while building the base load that we do not yet have and expanding access to reliable, clean, and affordable energy for everyone. In Nigeria, we face a situation where 36% of households do not have access to electricity grid, and where we remain mostly entirely dependent on fossil fuels for electricity generation. Nigeria does have a well-defined energy transition plan, and our energy mix must change, and the international community must meet its investment pledges to support countries in this transition. We know that the green and blue economy has a huge potential to unleash the next great wave of human development, with women and youth as the beneficiaries, opening new frontiers in the economy where we need to both expand and rethink how we deliver food systems, agriculture, how we rethink the transformation for education and the skill sets that will be needed for the markets that we want to engage with, digital social protection, and protecting our. In each of these areas, we face great challenges. But if we can find the tools to break through behind and reassess its presence and its leadership in the continent and on the world stage. As you look to your governors' visions, your missions, you must answer a key question. What do you need to accelerate these transformations in your state? Of course, every state has a different starting point, a different asset base, challenges and different circumstances. But I see 4 common areas where action and attention are urgently needed across the country. First, you will need institutional capacity. The apparatus of state must be strengthened, whether it's preparing civil and public servants, leveraging digital technologies and data systems, or empowering oversight bodies and local authorities from Lagos State. There's no substitute for inclusive, effective, and accountable public institutions. Promoting effective international cooperation offers an unprecedented opportunity as a driver of transformation, which Nigeria can show to the rest of the continent and the world. The question will be, are you ready to make that step up? 65% of the SDGs agenda. This is your agenda. It is health. It is dealing with poverty. It's education. It's investing in infrastructure, in energy. It is building institutions. It is finding partnerships to finance the cost. But 65% of the SDGs can be won or lost at the subnational level. By 2050, 68% of the world's population will live in cities. These cities will garner wealth and become centers of spatial inequalities and insecurity. Therefore, strengthening planning and in a coordinated, all-of-government approach within and between multiple levels of governance will be pivotal to accelerating the implementation of the 2030 Agenda, the vision of Nigeria, and to equip coordinated responses to localize and to better align efforts of national and local governments to achieve the SDGs. And in this case, we will have to give the place of local governments, of state governments, and the national level, in that order, the investments and the precedents that are needed to build a nation. Second, you will need trusted partnerships. Partnerships with central government, with the private sector, with civil society, academia, and with international financial institutions, and indeed with the United Nations, of which you are a big part. Our resident coordinators and our UN country teams are here in Nigeria at your service, but also across borders in the continent, with new Sustainable Development Cooperation frameworks that underscore the priority of government. This is the bedrock of our collaboration in the shared pursuit of the SDGs, but also of the African Union's 2063 agenda. But beyond formal support for programming and policy work, we are also here to help to convene and to broker the partnerships that are necessary to carry these priorities forward. We do have a unique convening power, and we're ready to deploy it whenever sustainable development progress is possible. This brings me to the third point, financing, the means of implementation. Ngozi had spoken to us about trade. That is one of the means of implementation, as is technology, as is finance, and the capacities to do this. Since 2015, their own national transformation. With global savings at over $230 trillion, a price tag for the SDGs is a mere $8 trillion. So we know we have the resources globally. That kind of shift still hasn't happened, and it's one of the biggest obstacles that we do have to development. The Secretary General is leading a global push to reform the international financial architecture where we can get this right, to deal with the debt crisis that are massively influenced by the global crises, to ensure we deal with liquidity constraints and the investment in developing countries by access to cheaper and longer-term finance. For debt restructuring, it is about us, for what we had not expected, to see a better use of that debt, longer-term and cheaper. The opportunities of the SDRs, which were the largest in history, from the IMF, 650 billion, over 36 billion, into the African Development Bank, which means we can leverage more money that comes from the banks for our development. And speaking to investments, investments won't come today with the kind of risk profiles we have. And while that narrative, we have a lot to do about changing it, it will be one that we have to do together with our colleagues in the international community. On the domestic front, we must address the informal sectors we heard earlier. It does have disposable income, and we can work with them to find ways that that disposable income can access the basic services that they need. Before, as Ngozi again has, then we have to be ready. And fourth and last, the area that is most in your hands is leadership. Committed leadership that can tap into these opportunities and guide the nation towards inclusive, sustainable development that really does truly leave no one behind. And for each one of your states, you need to see a mapping, your data that shows you exactly who those no ones are, how many people are living beneath the poverty line, how many people are out of work, how many don't access education, don't access health, and if they do, is it of quality? Is it of the education and health that you received? The first term goes very fast, and the second term even faster. Campaign promises made must be delivered, and that's hard. It requires an effective team, one that can deliver on those promises that have been made. Resource constraints are very real. The memberships will be key. Communicating and consulting will create less distraction, and it does help to manage the expectations. But perhaps the greatest of challenges that you will have at the state level will be how to change the mindsets. Under the Constitution of Nigeria, you have the authority and the responsibility to deliver on critical foundations of infrastructure and services, basic services, rights of people that can deliver on social and economic development. But to do so, you will have to lead, whether it's from the front, from the side, or from the back. The word that runs across all is leadership. You must inspire and shape a better future that includes everyone. You must bring the population on this journey with you, balancing the political economy for the benefit of all and not just a few. You must take every opportunity to have women and youth, not just at the table, but empowered to make meaningful contribution in the discourse. You must also open up to your political adversaries and govern with vision, with courage, tolerance, and humility. Your Excellencies, with only 7 years to go to meet the promises of the 2030 agenda, and even less in your first term, time is not on our side. Nigerians have very high expectations, and the world is watching. Remember, the transformation will not happen in a vacuum or by chance. The context we know is tough. Nigeria must prepare and be ready to take that quantum leap. I urge all of you, individually and collectively, to seize the moment of nation building by leveraging on the efforts made and working hand in hand with each other first, but with the President-elect Tinubu's administration, and I'm confident that you can steer our great nation to renewal and transformation. And of course, the UN will ever be at your disposal. Finally, as a Nigerian woman, let me also urge you to delegate to women's leadership. Many of you in this room have deputy governors that are women, but we need to see them in the cabinets and decision-making roles. We need to see them in business. And so that the next business person that speaks at this podium will be co-chairing with Tony Elumelu, but it'll be a woman. And in that way, we can see the equity in business, because for sure we know that women have the expertise and need the equal to challenge and have a right to do so in our nation building. As a democracy, thank you, women. As a democracy in progress, lessons must be learned, especially over the last election, and the healing must occur if we are to deepen that governance and to meet the expectations of our people. Finally, may I say, may the Almighty give you the wisdom, the courage to lead this country into a new dawn. I thank you.
And I say a very big amen to that. Thank you very much. A worthy daughter of the country and a global citizen. Let's appreciate her, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to listen to His Excellency the President of the country, and is represented here by a man that has meant so many things to this country, an academic, a diplomat, former permanent representative to United Nations for this country, former Minister for Foreign Affairs, right now the Chief of Staff to the President. Please join us and welcome here, Professor Ibrahim Gambari.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And I hear so much former this and former that, but as long as you don't say former Ibrahim Gambari, that's fine. And as I've always said, the simplest introduction should just simply be Ibrahim Gambari, teacher by training and diplomat by accident. Very prolonged accident, but still an accident. Your Excellency, the Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, Right Honorable Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, the Vice Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, His Excellency Governor Atiku Bagudu, Excellencies, the governors of the various states of the Federation here present, governors-elect. And I want to congratulate the returning governors and also the governors-elect. And particularly for the governors-elect, you have campaigned, as is often said, in poetry. Now you have to govern in prose. And I believe the statements, the address, which I'm shortly going to read on behalf of the President. I also want to acknowledge former governors, including especially the immediate past chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, my dear friend, younger brother, Dr. Kayode Fayemi. Of course, we have two remarkable women, proudly Nigerian, and clearly global citizens who continue to make Nigeria proud.
Her Excellency Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, my sister and the other sister, His Excellency Amina Mohammed, United Nations Deputy Secretary General. I'd like to give you maybe a bit of a secret. In the United Nations, the longer your titles, the shorter your authority. And that is why the most authoritative person in the UN is simply Secretary General hyphenated. And then you have Deputy Secretary General. Congratulations to us and to the organization that they both serve, that is the World Trade Organization, of which Dr. Okonjo-Iweala is Director General, and of course the United Nations, the only global institution, imperfect as it is, but the multilateral forum that tries to articulate and harmonize the interests of things that bind us together. Captains of industry, I don't know if Tony Elumelu is still here, as an embodiment of the contribution that the private sector can make in a collective effort to advance the progress, peace, security, and prosperity of our people. Members of the diplomatic corps, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have one of the easiest of tasks, which is to deliver an address on behalf of the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, who had asked me to represent him on this very important occasion. And I quote, "I welcome you all to this induction program for governors organized by the Nigeria's Governors Forum, NGF. The NGF induction, as we have come to know it, is a program meant to prepare new and returning governors for the task of governance, for the task of leadership, and also for the task of stewardship. This has become a tradition and practice that is indeed remarkable and places each one of you along the path of success. In March 2023, Nigeria consolidated and reinforced its democratic process with a general election which saw the election of a new president and about 18 newly elected and incoming governors. I'm happy to note that democracy is alive and well, vibrant and thriving in Nigeria. With the elections now over, it is time for us, all of us, to deliver the promises we made during the campaign. I've always maintained that democracy is not an event and is not an end state, nor is it a static event. Participants on a journey of self-actualization. The process forces us to hold a mirror to ourselves, and by so doing, we are made to constantly review and improve its critical elements in order to ensure that we have an inclusive democratic practice that gives faith to the voters. We must therefore be patient, we must be tolerant, and use the appropriate channels to seek redress if we believe there have been unfair practices along the way. As you can tell, I'm speaking as a veteran of the process with the scars to show for it. I contested election for the presidency 4 times and only succeeded on the 4th attempt. And each of the previous 3 occasions have gone all the way up to the Supreme Court in order to allow the judicial process to take its course. On May 29th this year, you will be called upon, as later this month, you will be called upon to steer the affairs of your states for the next 4 years, at least for those who are being elected for the first time as governors. From this day, you become wholly responsible for the state as an enterprise. You, as the governor or state executive, inherit all its assets as well as liabilities. The assumption of office is a constitutional process that we must take with utmost dedication in light of the trust bestowed on you by those who elected you to office. One significant development that we all saw from the last election is that the electorate is maturing and people are increasingly finding their voices. Any public officer who fails to either meet up with the expectations of the people or deliver on his campaign promises will be voted out in the next election. That is what democracy is about: deliver or get shown the way out. I joined the forum to promote ideals that will address the challenges of democracy and of governance in our country today. The role of the subnationals is critical in our social economic development as a nation. Your proximity to the people gives you the privilege to have an instant pulse on the needs and challenges, and yours is to devise creative as well as judicious means of addressing the myriad of issues that confront them daily. As returning or incoming state executives, you also must be cognizant of the comparative advantages inherent in each of your states and how you can form partnership with one another by leveraging your various strengths, experiences, and recognizing that there's no one size that fits all solutions. I also bid you to take this opportunity to unite across party divides in order to put the country first. I think one of the as made is that it is an important forum, an instrument to promote policies that cross across political parties, that cross across geopolitical zones, while addressing the nation's interests. Nigerians deserve peace, they deserve progress, and they deserve security. A country where they have access to quality education, to health, and social services. Therefore, your ability to champion these values will significantly impact the atmosphere where the delivery of social goods and services will be conducted efficiently and harmoniously. Where the road has been bumpy due to a challenging fiscal climate, but I'm proud to state that as we leave office in about 2 weeks, we have built a firm foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and a more united Nigeria. We could not have done everything, but we focused on a number of areas, particularly infrastructure, agriculture, and strengthening and empowering the capacity of our armed forces. Despite the difficult fiscal conditions, we remain committed to our promises. These key areas were strategically targeted. Our focus on infrastructure was to improve access to markets, improve linkages, and to reduce overall supply chain costs. This singular commitment to infrastructure development for roads, for rails, for our airports, for our ports, and affordable housing were designed to create better means of livelihood for our people and to facilitate access to jobs. I'm happy that we are succeeding in investing the nation's wealth in every state of the Federation and a clear development. Happy that we are succeeding in investing the nation's wealth in every state of the Federation and a clear path for sustainable development has been set. As a matter of fact, promoting the fact that we should eat what we produce and produce what we eat, while also increasing domestic production and expansion of critical export crops. This deliberate policy was especially necessary as COVID-19 forced shutdown, which led to increase in global food prices. And while we experienced some spike, we nonetheless were better able to contend with the food prices and enhance our food. Is occupied by terrorists, and they continue with laser focus to combat what remains of significantly degraded enemies of the state, and there shall be no letting up until peace and stability returns to our nation, all parts of it. As found in the oath that I took when I came first into office as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I shall continue to support their efforts with improved resources and modern welfare equipment to enhance their capabilities and abilities. I believe that the outgoing governors have left a legacy that will ensure that incoming governors are able to transit into office with minimal interruption in governance. This will ensure that new governments are able to make significant mileage as they step in, including identifying key operational and policy issues that require early and prompt and effective action. I'm very confident that from the foundation we have laid, the incoming federal government will build on our legacies in ensuring that we continue to build the country of our dreams and the country of the dreams of our founding fathers. I therefore say congratulations to all of you and good luck in the days and years ahead. On this note, I formally declare this induction open. I wish you all very fruitful deliberations in this induction program. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you for listening.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let's give a hand to the representative of His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, who has done the needful and spent the time delivering the President's speech and also declaring this induction open. Among several of the things that he said in terms of inspiring us all, including outgoing governors have left, and the governors that are incoming must be tolerant and use their executive office to find the things that would make life easier for their citizens, and also to use their corporate talent to further their state. And they should unite across party lines. He has sent his Chief of Staff to deliver those very well represented by his Chief of Staff. Your Excellency, sir, I would like to crave your indulgence for the photograph session, which would require that you are in the photographs with 3 batches of persons. I'd like to immediately, without much ado, invite the current governors, led by the chairman of the Governors Forum and the vice chair of the Governors Forum. Before we take that, please be seated for a second, sir. Thank you very much. Of the Governors Forum. We will be taking the photograph with the representative of the President in the first batch, with governors in situ, along with the former Nigeria Governors Forum Chair who are here, in the persons of Excellency Victor Atta, Excellency the former Senate President Bukola Saraki, Excellency Kayode Fayemi, along with the Chair and Vice Chair. Also, we would be asking Her Excellency Amina Mohammed and Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala to join that photograph. The second batch will be the governors-elect, and we would ask the Chief of Staff to the President to please remain for that second photograph as well, which would hold the Chair and the Vice Chair. And the final photograph will be, again, the governors-elect, the current governors and the sponsors, and the Chair and Vice Chair. It is my singular honor now to invite to the podium the Vice Chair of the Nigeria Governors Forum, His Excellency Atiku Bagudu, Governor of Kebbi State.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by the Chief of Staff, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, Your Excellency, the Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, and indeed all my colleagues that are here, and former governors and governors-elect, Your Excellency, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, the Director General of the World Trade Organizations, all our development partners, all our private sector donors, supporters, members, all distinguished invitees, good afternoon, everyone. Let me, on behalf of all of us in the forum, thank Mr. President, who was ably represented by the Chief of Staff. For many of us who have served during the period that President Muhammadu Buhari is the president, we have enjoyed equality of access. And I wish on behalf of my colleagues to record that. And equally, the National Economic Council, under the chairmanship of Professor Yemi Osibajo, has become a body of dialogue. And that is important because some of the things that Dr. Ngozi Iweala spoke about requires trust building. And since the evolution of the body, where data is deliberated, where policy is deliberated between the federating units, there has been a lot of trust, especially in the challenges that we face. And I believe that is a credit to both President Muhammadu Buhari and Vice President Yemi Osibajo. And equally, we want to thank the Chief of Staff for the supportive role he provides to Mr. President, as well as congratulate him on that award from South Africa. Equally, we want to thank both the Deputy Secretary of the United Nations, Her Excellency Amina Mohammed, and Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the Director General. We don't presume that because they are ours, they will always come. We know the sacrifice that it entails for them to be here. More than that, to share their experience, both gathered from within and outside the country. I'm sure for most of us, when Ngozi said the hall feels somber, maybe she was warning us about what is going to remind us about the state of the world economy and its effect on our own economy. But more than that, to alert us on the need to build consensus so that we can, particularly the governors-elect and returning governors, to join and come to quick agreement on some of the issues that are challenging us. We thank you for that. We equally thank all our development partners, both official and private. The World Bank has been especially helpful. Shuban, the Fiscal Transparency SIFTAS program, which is a $750 million program that was in place in the last 6 years, has enhanced fiscal transparency in all the states. And I think that enhances trust and the ability for states to enhance enhance their data and presentation to the private sector, so that we don't waste a lot of time even teasing out what is correct and what is incorrect. Equally, the support by the private sector, especially during the COVID challenge, where we even have a private sector-led initiative that raises a lot of funds to support the recovery from COVID, and thanks to all the private sector players, Tony Elemelu, Dangote Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and indeed all of the sponsors, Access Bank, First Bank, GSL Consulting, New Globe, Premium Trust, Signature Bank, for all the support and partnership. Equally, I want to thank all our colleagues, especially I can see Senator Bukola Saraki, former Governor Victor Atta, former Governor of Cross Rivers, I believe, and former Chairman Kayode Fayemi, and indeed all outgoing governors, returning governors, and governors-elect, as well as members of the Secretariat of the Nigerian Governors Forum, for organizing and supporting this event. Last but not least is to thank all of you that responded to this invitation and supported this induction program in one way or the other. We deeply appreciate you, and on behalf of the members of the forum, wish to say a big thank you to all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency Vice Chair of Nigeria Governors Forum, who is also the Governor of Kebbi State. Your Excellency, the representative of Mr. President, I'd like again to crave your indulgence for the group photographs that will be taking place here. And so I'd like to start by inviting the Chief of Staff to come forward, please, for the photograph. All serving governors to please come forward. Her Excellency Mrs. Amina Mohammed, Her Excellency Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala is here with her husband. Dr. Iweala, I believe Dr. Iweala would also join this photograph. I'd like to invite the CEO Dangote Foundation and the founder of Tony Elumelu Foundation to please come forward. Mr. Tony Elumelu, would you please be upstanding for this photograph? Thank you very much. The former chairs of the Nigeria Governors Forum, Obong Victor Atta, Dr. Fayemi, Senator Bukola Saraki, please join this photograph, sirs. Thank you. Where is Obong Victor Atta? Distinguished Senator Bukola Saraki. Thank you very much. And is Your Excellency, sir, I'd like to call on the governors-elect now, and I'd like the chairman and the vice chair to remain in this photograph, and the representative of Mr. President to also remain in this photograph. I'd like to call on the governors-elect to please step forward, and the re-elected governors to remain in the photograph. Excellency Amina Mohammed, Excellency Okonjo-Iweala will also remain in this photograph. I would like to invite the representative of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I'd like to invite the World Bank country lead to please join this photograph. Thank you. And the representative of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And also the U.S. embassies. We have only one batch after this photograph, so I'd like to ask governors who are not in the re-elected governors to please return to their seats. Re-elected governors and governors-elect for this photograph, please. Thank you very much. The American governors, Virginia and Maryland, who are here, should please join this photograph. Thank you. Re-elected governors and elected governors to please join this photograph. Thank you very much. U.S. and Virginia, can we see you? Absolutely. Please join the photograph. Thank you very much.
At TVC News, wherever the big news stories get up.
Some identities cannot be mistaken, like your business name and your account name. Your business name, if you be shootlace, then the account now, color can remove. If I see them, I block them straight. You don't understand? Don't confuse your customers. Sign up for a Money Point business account today and get a business account in your business name in minutes from your sure banker. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Whatever it takes to make sure you have a business account opened in your business name, we'll do it as your sure banker. Open a bank account in your business name with